Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's performance of Strategy 360, produced by Fitzgerald Power with the support of the currency. My name is Tom Lyons, and I'm here as the sidekick who is going to ask the questions of the stars. And we have two of them here. We have, of course, Stuart Fitzgerald, the Chief Executive of Fitzgerald Power, and we have Lorcan Tiernan, who is a former partner with Dylan Eustace. He is the non-executive chair of Fitzgerald Power, and he is the former chair of Principal Logistics Solutions, a story which we're going to hear a bit more about this evening. But maybe just first of all, Stuart, just if you want to say a few words about why you put this evening together and what's it all about.
Thanks, Tom. And this time next year, Fitzgerald Power, the musical, by the way, which I hope you'll participate in. So, look, first of all, it's a great venue, and I just want to say thank you to Aileen Cummins from our team and to Ali from your team, Tom, for pulling this event together and for everyone for attending. So what's Strategy 360 about? What we found in advising clients, such as the currency, clients up and down the country and in our own business, is that there is a gap when it comes to strategic planning for the SME sector. So where do you go? Who do you call when you're looking to build a strategic plan? When you're looking to build an operating system that can scale with your business? When you're looking to build a finance system that can measure your success? When you're deliberately building a value creation plan so that all your years of hard work really result in an outcome that's favourable to the shareholders? And then how do you put the tax structure in place to make sure you retain as much value as possible? So that's the purpose of it, Tom. That's the reason we built the three-part white paper series that supports this event, the three-part column series that appeared in the currency, which I hope you read. And we've just got a brilliant panel, and we're so happy they're here to join us tonight. There's some brilliant entrepreneurial stories, and we'll hear about their lessons, we'll hear about the challenges along the way, and I think there'll be a couple of nuggets for all of us to take back to our businesses.
And Lorcan, we're talking about challenges and we're talking about lessons. Just maybe if you could just tell people a little bit about, your involvement with Principal Logistics Technologies and what were the challenges it was facing and why you decided to become its chairperson.
Yeah, so the Principal story is a very good one. It stretches back long before my involvement, so I came in for the glory towards the end, so to speak. But it was set up by an Australian called Peter Flanagan, who moved to Ireland, married here. He was a software engineer, and he wrote some code that he developed over time into a logistics warehouse management system. So for the first, say, 15 years of the company, he ran it pretty much as a lifestyle business, and I don't mean that in any disrespectful way, but it probably describes what he did. But it was tough. He was at the front line of everything. Every customer had his mobile phone number. If a warehouse went down at 3 a.m. on a Saturday, he was the one on the front line. He brought in during that period, he brought in some BES, as it was, or EWIS funding. He then refinanced that. He brought an angel investor in, Pan Olin, who was a huge support to him. And after COVID, he decided that he needed to do a bit more. And I suppose this is where his strategy started, as most companies will do, with what the shareholder or the founder wants to get out of the company, and that can quite often be the first seeds of the company developing its strategy. So he recognised that he wasn't at a scale to meet his financial goals, within any reasonable time period, so that he needed to grow. But that to do that, he needed to dilute back, bring in some external investment, professionalise the team around him. So he identified what he was really good at and what he wasn't. So he brought in a very strong commercial director, who then helped bring in a very strong finance function. He brought in a chief operating officer, introduced an equity pool for the senior staff of about 20%, and then went out to raise funding to help him with his next steps.
So he's somebody he's looking, he's investing in the business, growing the talent pool, taking the steps to really scale it. Did you talk to him, Lorcan, about what did he need to do, from a personal point of view? Was there steps that he needed to take, in terms of preparing his finances, so if he did scale the business and there was an exit, that he would be ready for that moment?
Yeah. So I knew Peter personally. We acted for him in Dillon Eustace. Philip Leah, who I think is here, Philip ran the transaction. And it was during that transaction that Peter asked me if I'd go onto the board and chair the board. He was very easy to advise, and he was open to suggestions. So very early on, he put his personal tax plan in place. And Brian and Lisa will chat about what that might look like a little bit later on. As I said, he built the team around him, and he started building the strategy. He professionalized the board, brought in the 2 private equity investors onto the board, and he was a great listener, and he was extremely humble, but willing to take the steps that people suggested to him.
And Stuart, can you talk a little bit about the Fitzgerald Power story? How the business came together and what your strategy is for growing it?
Yeah, so and look, lots of the themes that Lorcan is describing are common to our business as well. So Fitzgerald Power is a business that was founded by Jennifer's father and my father, and myself and Noel Winters, who will be on a panel later on, bought that business about 8 years ago. And at that point, we made a decision, Tom, to just a bit of salary sacrifice and a bit of investing off our own balance sheet to see if we could scale the business. So, it was we weren't working to a plan, to be completely honest. We hadn't our own tax affairs in order, to be completely honest, in terms of structure. But we were doing things instinctively, and we were getting a lot of stuff wrong and a lot of stuff right. And I guess we started to get our act together a little bit around the time that the private equity interest starts to heat up in the professional services sector, right? So we were, like every business of our type, we were subject to a huge amount of unsolicited inbound inquiries, UK equity, Irish equity, UK trade, Irish trade. And it was distracting, but to be honest with you, and Lorcan was with us as chair at that time, it was probably a very, very instructive and interesting period for us, because it really made us reflect, myself and Noel. What are we going to do with this thing? Are we going to be the only shareholders in it going forward? Are we going to look to scale the business in a different way? How are we going to bring the management team in, similar to what Lorcan is describing? What are the gaps in the org chart? What do we need to really make this thing work? And so when we worked through all of that, what we realised was we do need growth capital. We do need some strategic support, because we didn't, I think we had brought the business as far as we could bring it off our own ideas, our own momentum. So Lorcan led around 5 high net worths who came in as a advisory board and a group of strategic investors, and they put in the growth capital that we needed to go on the next stage of the journey. Our management team all came in as part of that into the equity pool. We made a couple of strategic hires, and it's been brilliant. I must say it's been a great experience. It's given us the platform to really scale. We have huge confidence in what we're doing. We have huge conviction in it, and it's been a great couple of years.
And Lorcan, like Stuart, he didn't want to sell. He took in capital. He wants to grow the business. But in Peter's case, he had grown the business.
Yeah.
When did he know that it was the right time to sell, and what was that process like?
So he well, there was a bit of a journey before then. So one of the first things we did when we brought in private equity, he was probably pretty subscale. So when we went out looking for private equity in Ireland, he wasn't big enough for the market here. But we found a US investor that specialized in logistics, and he just got it. He just saw that there was something here that he could work with. But even then, it wasn't big enough for his fund. So he brought in a club of investors outside the fund, and then we were able to make 2 acquisitions along the way with the support of the private equity backers. And and he helped us with the strategy. And it was we struggled with him a little bit because he at that stage all our board calls were on Teams, and he never turned his camera on. So it was 6 months before I actually ever saw his face. And Peter and I, Peter would say, Lorcan, should we not be getting him to turn his camera on? And I said, well, look, Peter, you probably have lots of bumpy issues with him as your investor, so let's not make this one of them. But every now and again, he would drop a gem into the conversation. So you'd be halfway through a board meeting. I remember we were discussing the strategy that Peter and the team had spent a long time working on. And about an hour into the meeting, I just said, Ted, do you have any thoughts on this? Kind of half expecting him to wake up. And he just came back with 3 things. He said, yeah, guys, there are 3 things that I think you need to do. Bang, bang, bang. And they were just gems. So it showed the power of having a really good investor with sector knowledge on the board. So we went from there. We bought the 2 companies, and it was Ted who actually first said we probably weren't thinking about selling for another couple of years, or at least Peter wasn't. And Ted said, guys, I think the time is about right. And not only that, but there is one particular prospective buyer in the market. They've just taken in private equity. They're very active in logistics. And he said, I'm in a rush, he said, but I think you should go off and talk to them, which we did. And that was up to him.
Tom, do you mind if I just come in there for one second?
Of course.
And just to say, much like Lorcan's experience, I think for us, the background of the 5 individuals that came into the Fitzgerald Power cap table was a big factor in the route we decided to go. So look, cash is a commodity, and there was lots of options available to us, but having 5 individuals that were, very diverse in their background, that could all bring something different, in fairness to the strategic thinking, that was really important to us in terms of who we selected.
Now, Stuart, when you're thinking about that, like you brought in the investment and they want to see a plan, and they want to see a clear strategy. What sort of things did you work on with your investors and your team in terms of a 3-year strategy? What did that look like?
So we actually had the strategic plan built before the investors had actually come in. Now, it was a painful enough process and a lot of iteration, but when we really got down to it, we felt... So our business, Tom, grows at a kind of a 30% CAGR. This is the 4th and 5th year of it in terms of revenue, in terms of headcount. So we're quite good at originating work. We didn't feel that an M&A strategy was the route we wanted to go, right? So the whole strategy became around how do we give the best service that we can give to the SME community in Ireland, and it came down to hiring the best people, giving them the best learning and development experience, building the best processes and systems to do it, and then telling the market about it. They were the pillars of the strategy, in effect. So we had that built and refined when the advisory board came in. Now, we kicked the tires on that a lot with the advisory board group. So we meet twice a year. The lads are very, very detail orientated and very involved, and we pull it apart and we put it back together. But they have been the principles upon which we built the business. And look, we're 100 people nearly today down in Waterford. The plan over 3 years is to be 200 based in the southeast. That is very much the thing that's driving us in the management team, because that's the region we're from, and that's ultimately the foundation of it.
I'm conscious of our time before the next panel, but just Lorcan, you're very experienced. You've worked in lots of different places. What do you look for when you're thinking of becoming a chairperson or investing in the business or just going onto the board? I mean, it's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I think the first thing I look for is chemistry with the CEO and the senior leadership team.
You're very kind.
Yes, yeah. That is very important, or it'll struggle. The ambition and the inklings of a strategy, an idea. It won't be fully formed, or it mightn't be fully formed, but founders or a senior leadership team that have a direction. It may not be down on paper or in a PowerPoint, but it's the bones of it are there, that you can see the vision, you can see the North Star that they're chasing. And then the energy to drive it on.
And just my final question for you, Stuart, just in terms of strategy, like, is it important, like, how important is the advisory board and getting people with, lots of different experiences around you? Has that changed you as a CEO and changed the culture of your business?
100%. And I think, look, as someone who's trying to drive a business on, you have to accept that you don't have all the answers. You're doing what I'm doing. You're the CEO of your business, and I know in terms of how you've built your board is something similar. So I really look for the challenge that comes from Jarlath and Bob and Lorcan and the others, and that's, I mean, look, when it comes down to it, right? You have the strategic plan, you have this goal that you're driving towards getting to, but ultimately things change. Things develop. You need to be flexible. You need to be able to adapt the plan to meet the conditions that you're seeing in the market. So yes, I mean, the value of our advisory board is that we absolutely robustly challenge the strategy twice a year and make sure that we're on track to deliver the goal.
Well, look, thank you very much, Lorcan and Stuart. They're both going to be around afterwards if anyone wants to ask them a question or approach them. But thank you very much, and that's the conclusion of our first panel.